We all know that young dragons look remarkably like lizards, but even though he was the last five-clawed golden dragon, humans treated him like nothing more than a rare golden lizard. In just 1 month, monsters would invade this world, and he had to grow by eating constantly to protect Huaxia. His destiny was to become the guardian deity, yet here he was, stuck in a zoo with only 2 starch sausages a day. Just as he feared he would fail his mission, a woman named Lu Qinghan appeared. She didn't just feed him 2 tons of meat daily. She rallied the nation to feed him and had the state buy up meat from across the globe. You see, she was actually a regressor who had returned from 3 months in the future. She knew that in 1 month, monsters would appear everywhere, plunging humanity into a desperate crisis. But in her past, a divine dragon had appeared in Huaxia. She could never forget it, because back then, that very dragon had saved her life just as she was about to be killed. She had watched with her own eyes as the dragon emerged from this zoo to slay the beasts. However, 3 months into that war, the divine dragon died. He was swarmed by monsters and perished, letting out a mournful cry in his final moments. She had heard his words clearly. If only I had eaten more to grow stronger, it wouldn't have ended like this. After his death, Huaxiao fell, and she died too. But she never expected to be reborn. Now, she had rushed to the zoo to find him. Where are you? She wondered. I must help you grow. After all, he was the only savior who could protect Huaxia. Qinghan looked everywhere, but couldn't see the dragon. She assumed that since he was a golden dragon, he must be golden even as a hatchling. Since dragons look like snakes, she naturally figured he was being raised as one. So she headed straight for the snake enclosure. Just then, the walkie-talkie of the zookeeper, Li Tianming, crackled to life. Director, a giant python has escaped. It crawled into the lizard area. Tianming shouted that he was on his way and immediately sprinted toward the lizard enclosure, which was only a dozen meters away from the snakes. Seeing this, Qinghan followed him closely. She was convinced that the escaped python must be the divine dragon. He must have been so hungry, he couldn't wait to go out and hunt lizards. I've finally found you, she thought. In this life, I will make sure you grow rapidly into the most invincible dragon in the world. She was overcome with excitement. When they finally reached the lizard enclosure, they saw a yellow python nearly 2 meters long. This only confirmed her belief that this was the savior she was looking for. And right in front of the python sat a small golden lizard, looking quite dazed and completely still. What a pity, Qinghan sighed to herself. Before the divine dragon, you are merely food. Even Li Tianming felt a pang of sadness seeing the little lizard about to be swallowed, as this was the only creature left in the lizard area. This was the very last lizard left in the enclosure. If it died, the entire section would have to close. Many onlookers felt their hearts sink as they watched the tiny creature face such a massive python. He must have felt utterly hopeless, or so they thought. Everyone was certain the lizard was doomed, given the staggering difference in size. At that moment, Chen Qing looked up at the giant snake. To be honest, he was definitely feeling a bit of fear, but as a divine dragon, he couldn't afford to back down. The python hissed, its tongue flickering with murderous intent as its slitted eyes locked onto Chen Qing, ready to strike. Suddenly, Chen Qing activated his dragon might skill, releasing the terrifying aura of a true divine dragon to exert a horrific pressure. In an instant, the python closest to Chen Qing was jolted by a shock. It looked at the lizard, which had seemed so weak just a second ago, and couldn't understand why. It now felt so terrifying, as if it were staring at its natural predator. To the crowd's utter disbelief, the python actually began to back away slowly, its face showing a very human-like expression of terror. It seemed it no longer dared to eat him. What's happening? Li Tianming asked in shock. He had assumed the lizard was a goner, but now it appeared that python was actually afraid of him. Lu Qinghan widened her eyes, staring intently at the lizard. She began to wonder if this small creature was, in fact, the true divine dragon. Just then, Chen Qing made his move. He lunged forward with a sudden burst of speed, swinging his powerful claws at the python. With his dragon might active, he appeared, absolutely terrifying to the snake, leaving it too paralyzed with fear to even fight back. It had already lost the mental battle. With one swipe, the python's flesh was torn open, and blood began to flow. Terrified, the python tried to scramble away, but the humans outside had already sealed the exit. There was nowhere left to run. You think you can escape after that mistake? Chen Qing said coldly. Of course, to the outsiders, it just sounded like high-pitched chirping. He continued to swing his claws, using his dragon might to suppress the python until he finally managed to kill it. Everyone stood there speechless. A tiny lizard had actually slain a 2-meter-long python. A battle that should have had no suspense had ended in a complete reversal. It was truly staggering. Lu Qinghan watched with a spark in her eyes, her face full of wonder. As she watched Chen Qing begin to eat the python bit by bit, she became absolutely certain that this was the divine dragon she was looking for. Director Li, I'm investing immediately, she announced, and I want to raise this lizard. Have your people bring him meat right now, as much as he can eat. As Chen Qing feasted heartily, notifications began to chime in his mind. Successful meal, gained 3 evolution points. Successful meal, gained 3 evolution points. Successful meal, gained another 3 evolution points. The prompts rang out continuously as his body began to grow larger and larger, leaving Lu Qinghan watching from the outside in total awe. He's getting bigger, she whispered. He really is the divine dragon. Li Tianming also watched Qin Qing in disbelief, shocked by how fast he was growing. It was happening right before their eyes, at a speed that seemed almost impossible. It was as if he were some kind of monster. By the time Qin Qing had finished the entire, only after devouring the entire 2-meter-long python did his growth finally halt, but by then, he had reached over a meter in length and weighed 50 pounds. The 2 large bumps on his head split open, and tiny dragon horns poked through, while his scales shimmered with a majestic and formidable aura. He no longer looked like a mere lizard, but something more akin to a crocodile. Director Li, this is normal. Have everyone sign non-disclosure agreements immediately. The zoo will close for 1 month for renovations before reopening, Lu Qinghan declared. The news of a divine dragon could not be leaked to the public. She feared that people with ill intentions might harm him. She planned to nurture the divine dragon in secret until he was strong enough to face the monsters in a month. Li Tianming nodded. She was the boss now, so he would simply follow orders. As long as the zoo stayed open, he was fine with anything. Starting today, give your all to raising this lizard. Hire more people for security. Not a single scratch must come to him, Lu Qinghan said coldly. Understood, Li Tianming replied. Though he didn't fully grasp her reasoning, it was clear she was obsessed with this lizard. Rich people truly are capricious, he thought, buying a whole zoo for a lizard. Meanwhile, having finished his python feast, Qin Qing began to check his accumulated evolution points. Even after eating that massive snake, he didn't feel full, which made him realize just how vast his appetite had become. Food's here, eat up. Just then, the staff arrived with another meal. Qin Qing expected a couple of chicken drumsticks, but when he looked up, he was momentarily stunned. What they brought in was half a pig. Good grief, he thought. Has the government relief arrived? Or is this my final meal? Why is the food so extravagant this time? Truly, it's enough to make one envious. These days, even a lizard can find a wealthy benefactor, while most people aren't so lucky. And that benefactor is the daughter of the richest man, Lu Qinghan, who is also known as the most beautiful girl at Qin University. Besides, since he was currently a lizard, there was no way she could recognize him. He decided not to overthink it. Perhaps she just liked lizards. As long as there was food, he was happy. Qin Qing rushed to devour the half-pig as his evolution points surged, and just as he finished that portion, the staff brought in another half, making him marvel that this place was truly a paradise. Daughter, I heard you bought a zoo, Lu Qinghan's father asked her later that day. Yes, she replied. Can you tell me why? Father, you might not believe me, but this zoo holds the key to the future of our nation. Lu Qingsong fell silent for a moment. The future? Yes, you'll understand in a month. I can't explain the details right now. She was, after all, a regressor, and that was a secret she couldn't share yet. No one would believe her anyway. Fine, her father said. Consider it your first step in business. Lu Qingsong didn't object, choosing to let Lu Qinghan handle things her way. Over the next few days, the zoo remained closed for renovations while the staff followed Lu Qinghan's strict orders to feed Qin Qing daily. To be honest, Qin Qing's growth rate was starting to terrify everyone. By the first day, Qin Qing's body had already reached 3 meters in length and weighed 100 pounds, nearly filling the entire western district. A stunned Li Tianming watched as Lu Qinghan ordered the adjacent snake area to be cleared out, creating a much larger space for Qin Qing to inhabit. She hired over 100 workers, who, in just one day, constructed a 100-meter enclosure. It featured reinforced glass and a natural ecosystem designed to make Qin Qing feel more comfortable, all while the food never stopped coming. By the second day, Qin Qing was 6 meters long and weighed 1,500 pounds. He could even stand upright, reaching 3 stories high. Since standing meant hitting the ceiling, he stayed low, but as he grew, his appetite became truly monstrous. He was eating hundreds of pounds of meat a day. If not for Lu Qinghan's massive fortune, no one could afford to keep him. Yet, the larger he grew, the more excited Lu Qinghan became. She urged her divine dragon to grow quickly, wanting him to shock the world in a month. By the third day, Qin Qing's length surpassed 10 meters, and he weighed 3,000 pounds. The dragon horns on his head had fully emerged, and his body grew slender, losing that wide lizard-like shape. His scales shimmered with a brilliant, radiant light. He looked more like a dragon every hour, leaving the zoo staff in utter disbelief. They couldn't help but wonder if this was still a lizard at all. The transformation was simply undeniable. At this rate, the secret of the divine dragon wouldn't stay hidden for long. His very presence was creating a butterfly effect. Without her, he never would have been discovered because he wouldn't have had the resources to grow. She soon accepted that the secret would eventually come out. She had to prepare herself for how to handle her family and the authorities. If pushed, she was ready to reveal her identity as a regressor to help the nation prepare for what was coming. That night, as Qin Qing fell into a deep sleep, a solitary figure slipped quietly into his enclosure and approached him with great caution. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. Divine Dragon, thank you for protecting me in my past life. In this life, I won't let you die, Lu Qinghan whispered. If the Divine Dragon hadn't saved her before, she would have died long ago. She looked at Qin Qing and carefully reached out to touch the top of his head. As she felt the cold scales, her heart raced and tears of joy fell. She had wanted to touch him for so long. She had finally fulfilled this long-held wish. However, Chen Qing's sudden, heavy breathing startled her, and she quickly retreated. Not long after Lu Qinghan left, Chen Qing slowly opened his eyes. So, this woman is a regressor, he thought to himself. He had heard every word Lu Qinghan just whispered. He hadn't expected her to be a reborn soul, which explained why she was helping him so fervently. From her words, it seemed he had died in his past life due to malnutrition. In this life, as long as he ate enough, he certainly wouldn't die. Time moved forward to the 10th day. Under a continuous supply of food, Chen Qing's length reached 90 meters and his weight hit 500 tons. His evolution points reached 10,000, unlocking many skills, and the dragon horns on his head were now fully exposed. His body had become slender yet incredibly intimidating, with golden scales shimmering brilliantly. His head looked exactly like the dragons of legend. At this point, the truth was becoming impossible to hide. Anyone who saw him could recognize him as a dragon. "Miss Lu, how did this lizard become like this? He looks just like a dragon," Li Tianming said, standing outside the glass enclosure in utter shock. In just 10 short days, that 40-inch lizard had transformed into a terrifying beast nearly 100 meters long. If he hadn't stayed low, he likely would have crashed through the ceiling for the whole world to see. "He is a dragon," Lu Qinghan said calmly. There was no point in hiding it anymore. Hearing her confirm it, Li Tianming was stunned. A real dragon? Could it be? Do the dragons of legend actually exist? "Boss, director, this is bad." A huge crowd of reporters and citizens has gathered outside, demanding to see the dragon. Just then, the walkie-talkies of Lu Qinghan and Li Tianming crackled to life. The staff member's voice left them both pale with shock. How did this happen? How did the people outside know there was a dragon here? Lu Qinghan spoke quickly. "It's impossible. Everyone signed a non-disclosure agreement, unless someone betrayed that agreement. Last night, a drone entered our park and filmed the dragon. That video has already gone viral on social media," the voice continued. This left Lu Qinghan incredibly shaken. She hadn't prepared for such a move. "It's true, I just saw it," Li Tianming said, holding his phone out. He placed the phone in front of Lu Qinghan. The video showed a dark scene from a drone's perspective, filming from above. It captured a massive creature sleeping, and that creature was Chen Qing. Even in the dark of night, his golden scales were shimmering and eye-catching. The title was incredibly clickbaity, shocking. A giant dragon appears in the Qin family zoo. No wonder the zoo had closed for renovations. They had found a dragon. It was being called the greatest discovery in human history, with over 10 million likes and millions of comments. "No way. Is this real? It doesn't look fake. Are there really dragons? Look at those golden scales. Where's this? I have to go there." The comments were exploding. "I know that zoo. It's right near my house. I'm going tomorrow, and if there's no dragon, someone's going to pay." Others were in awe, calling it the greatest discovery in human history. Even while asleep, the creature's sheer pressure was terrifying. Was this truly a dragon? Back at the zoo, Lu Qinghan was fuming. She gritted her teeth in frustration as her phone began to ring incessantly. It was her father, Lu Qingsong. He didn't waste any time with pleasantries. He demanded to know exactly what was going on and whether this was some elaborate marketing stunt. Ever since he learned his daughter invested in the zoo, he had kept people watching her. To him, the idea of a real dragon was simply absurd. He told her that if this was a marketing strategy, it was certainly bold, but dangerous. He had no idea, of course, just how real the situation was. Lu Qinghan took a deep breath. "Dad, what I'm about to tell you will shock you, but it is the absolute truth. The creature in my zoo is a real dragon, a divine dragon." She looked directly into the camera of her video call, her expression more serious than he had ever seen it. Lu Qingsong froze for a moment before snapping back. "Nonsense. Do you have any idea what kind of impact this lie will have once it's exposed?" He warned her that the internet was already in an uproar. If the media discovered she was fabricating rumors, it would destroy the family's reputation. "It's all true," she insisted. "If you don't believe me, come see for yourself. This concerns the very future of our nation." Seeing his daughter's unwavering conviction and that unmistakable tone of certainty, Lu Qingsong found himself at a loss for words. She had never spoken to him like this before. Something had clearly changed. "Fine," he conceded. "I will come and see this so-called dragon myself." Outside the zoo, the crowd had grown into a sea of people. Reporters and netizens were all clamoring for a glimpse of the legendary beast. Suddenly, a fleet of luxury Rolls-Royces pulled up, drawing every eye. People recognized the license plates immediately. It was the wealthiest man in the city. The crowd went wild. Was the tycoon here to see the dragon too? Or perhaps, as some whispered, he was the one secretly raising it all along. As Lu Qingsong and Lu Qinghan stepped out of the car, a barrage of camera flashes erupted. They were swarmed by the press instantly. Lu Qingsong remained calm, his face a mask of stone as a small army of bodyguards cleared a path toward the entrance for them. Li Tianming hurried to open the gates. At that moment, the world realized the dragon was connected to the Lu family, and the news went viral. They boarded a sightseeing car and headed deep into the enclosure. And then, Lu Qingsong finally laid eyes on the massive, golden form of Chen Qing. As the golden divine dragon lay there, curled on the ground in a deep slumber, the city's wealthiest man, a man who had seen it all, stood frozen in disbelief. His eyes betrayed a profound sense of shock. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of magnificent creature he was truly looking at. In 20 days, this behemoth would fully emerge, and the entire world would be stunned. This time, perhaps, the nation would not fall so easily. Lu Qingsong remained speechless for a long time before finally finding his voice. He asked if he could go inside for a closer look. The request startled everyone. His bodyguard of 20 years immediately protested, worried that they didn't yet know if the beast was dangerous. Lu Qingsong simply replied that if this was truly the guardian dragon of their people, it would never harm him. With that, he walked toward the gate. Lu Qinghan didn't try to stop him. Instead, she followed her father inside. Seeing this, the rest of the group nervously trailed behind them. But as the crowd entered, Chen Qing, who had been drifting in a half-sleep, suddenly snapped his golden, metallic eyes open and locked onto them. An overwhelming, terrifying pressure radiated from him, heavy as a mountain. In an instant, the weight became too much for the visitors to bear. One by one, they fell to their knees, their bodies trembling and teeth chattering. Their very souls were terrified. This was, without a doubt, a dragon. Lu Qingsong felt a primal suppression within his very blood. It is said his people are descendants of the dragon, and only a true dragon could command such awe. Suddenly, Chen Qing spoke in a human tongue, asking what they were doing there. The group was paralyzed with fear as the dragon's voice echoed. Trembling, Lu Qingsong forced himself to look up at the massive creature. He was utterly stunned that the dragon could actually speak. Chen Qing looked down at them from his great height, noting that for a divine dragon, speaking the human language was hardly a difficult feat. He allowed his draconic pressure to linger, making their very bones ache. To be honest, it was a bit much for mere mortals to handle. Lu Qinghan cried out, pleading for him to stop before the pressure crushed them. She felt as though her skeleton was on the verge of shattering. Hearing her plea, Chen Qing withdrew his aura, finally allowing them to stand. Lu Qingsong was more overwhelmed with excitement than the day he became a billionaire. A dragon, the legend he had only heard of in rumors and myths, was now standing right in front of him, breathing and speaking. Looking at the dragon felt like a descendant meeting an ancient ancestor. There was a deep, bloodline connection that, strangely enough, felt almost like family. Lu Qinghan spoke up excitedly, asking the great dragon if the food she had been providing was to his liking. Chen Qing turned his gaze toward her. Chen Qing replied that he was well aware of her kindness, thanking her for the hospitality. Deep down, he knew that without Lu Qinghan, he could never have developed this quickly. Great dragon, in 20 days the monsters will appear. Please, protect our nation and protect us, Lu Qinghan pleaded. As soon as those words left her lips, the others were struck with utter shock, their eyes darting toward her. Daughter, what are you saying? Lu Qingsong asked in disbelief. What monsters are coming in 20 days? Chen Qing's voice rumbled like distant thunder as he spoke. He told them he already knew, and that heaven had sent him specifically to eradicate the monsters and save the land. Hearing the dragon confirm it, the group finally accepted the terrifying truth. It all sounded like a fever dream, yet the divine dragon before them was far too real to be a fantasy. If monsters truly were coming in 20 days, what could they possibly do? Many in the group were already mentally resigning from their jobs to stockpile food and find shelter. Suddenly, the frantic voice of a staff member broke the tension. Director, this is bad. A large group of investigators has arrived outside. The authorities were here, and they were looking for the dragon. Li Tianming looked at Lu Qinghan with eyes full of worry, silently asking what they should do. Leave it to me, Lu Qingsong said firmly, taking charge of the situation. He hurried out to make a phone call, while Lu Qinghan frowned. Things were becoming increasingly serious, and she knew they couldn't keep this a secret for much longer. The investigators had found them, and as the dragon grew larger, it was only a matter of time before the National Army arrived. Director, it's okay. The investigators have all left. Lu Qingsong returned after finishing his call, having handled the situation so they wouldn't return. Still, Lu Qinghan knew this was hardly a long-term solution. She sighed, knowing they would be discovered eventually. One day, I will be revealed to the world. You have no need to hide me, Chen Qing stated calmly. The group looked up at the dragon. Indeed, with him growing larger every day, secrecy was a losing game. Great dragon, is there anything we can do to help you? Lu Qingsong asked. Chen Qing's request was simple, he needed more food. Upon hearing this, Lu Qingsong immediately pulled out his phone to make another series of urgent calls. He ordered his people to buy every piece of meat in the city and deliver it to the Qin Zoo immediately. He didn't stop there, reaching out to every contact he had. He called slaughterhouse owners, demanding they send their entire stock. The influence of the city's wealthiest man was truly formidable. With just a few calls, the city's meat supply moved. Truckloads of fresh meat began streaming toward the zoo. Even local shops were packing up their entire inventories to contribute to the dragon's massive feast. By the end of the day, the meat was piled up like a mountain. Chen Qing opened his massive maw and began to feast, swallowing half the mountain in a single, terrifying gulp. His evolution points began to skyrocket. In moments, his body surged past 200 meters in length, and his points reached 15,000, unlocking a new level of power. The divine dragon devoured the remaining food with a terrifying intensity. Witnessing this staggering appetite, Lu Qingsong was utterly shocked and immediately reached for his phone again. He began making a non-stop series of calls. Over the next 5 days, a continuous stream of meat arrived, delivered by Lu Qingsong's men and even by helicopters. Meanwhile, all the other animals in the zoo were secretly moved to a new environment. Now, the entire zoo belonged to Chunqing alone. By the following day, Chunqing's evolution points surpassed 20,000. His body stretched to 400 meters in length, and he unlocked a new skill, the Spatial Dragon Claw. On the third day, his evolution points broke 30,000. His massive frame reached 1,000 meters, weighing 5,000 tons, and he unlocked the Dragon Sensibility. By the fifth day, Chunqing's evolution points had reached 50,000. His body was now 3,000 meters long, weighing 50,000 tons, and he mastered a transformative power. He could now shrink his body, so he no longer occupied such a vast area. Furthermore, his dragon might have been refined, allowing him to disable any thermal weaponry. Under the bright sun, a small, golden dragon, resembling a tiny snake, floated in midair with its eyes closed. "Great dragon, we have found what you requested," Lu Qinghan said. She arrived with her bodyguards, one of whom held a wooden box. When opened, it revealed a glowing red fruit, a gene fruit, a rare treasure indeed. Consuming it could alter human DNA, granting immense power. Chunqing opened his eyes and gazed at the fruit. This was exactly what he had been looking for. His dragon sense had detected its presence. Since unlocking this skill, he could sense energy fields within 100,000 meters. The stronger the energy, the clearer the signal. "You should swallow it," Chunqing spoke slowly. "I have no use for it, but it will be beneficial to you." Upon hearing this, Lu Qinghan felt a surge of emotion. She was deeply moved that the great dragon was looking out for her. "Thank you, great dragon," she said with a bow, before taking the fruit and swallowing it whole. She didn't harbor a single doubt regarding the dragon's words. Almost immediately, Lu Qinghan felt a majestic power flooding her entire body, as if she were being reborn. She felt as though her strength had become limitless, enough to shatter a tree with a single punch. With a swift strike, she chopped at the wooden box in the guard's hand. The box exploded instantly, scattering splinters everywhere. Seeing their lady become so powerful so suddenly, the bodyguards were left speechless. "Thank you, great dragon," she cried. Lu Qinghan immediately dropped to one knee. In this life, she had become someone entirely different. With the dragon's help, she was transcending her mortal limits. "Continue to search for these items as I instructed. They will help you all grow stronger," Chunqing said. He could sense many more pockets of vast energy nearby. These items were likely similar to the gene fruit, and their appearance was surely linked to the coming monsters. Only half a month remained before the invasion would begin. Just then, Lu Qinghan's phone rang. It was her father, Lu Qingsong. As soon as she answered, his frantic, worried voice came through the line. "Qinghan, quickly, take the divine dragon and leave. The military is here." His voice was so loud that everyone nearby heard it, as Chunqing slowly raised his dragon eyes. He spoke with a calm indifference. "There is no need. They have already arrived." Just as the words left his mouth, Lu Qinghan's heart sank. She watched in shock as the situation escalated instantly. A disciplined unit of soldiers marched in with wide eyes, surrounding Chunqing's territory. Not only that, but 2 tanks rolled up outside, sealing off the zoo. They were heavily surrounded. "Listen inside. You are surrounded. Come out immediately," a middle-aged man in camouflage shouted through a megaphone. Lu Qinghan trembled at the sight of such a massive force, terrified they might provoke the divine dragon. "Wait, we aren't bad people," she cried out. At that moment, a middle-aged man with a square jaw stepped out from the military ranks. On his shoulder was a badge featuring a dragon's head. Seeing that insignia, Lu Qinghan gasped. It was the mark of a National Guardian General. Looking at his face, she realized she had seen him in her past life. This was Wang Guotian, a man of countless military achievements. After the monsters appeared, the very first one killed by humanity fell by his hand. Back then, he had piloted a fighter jet to bomb a monster's head, using superb skill to take it down. Now, Wang Guotian looked inside the zoo. When he saw Chunqing floating in midair, he turned pale with shock. It really was a dragon. The satellites hadn't lied, and the internet rumors were true. Wang Guotian shouted in disbelief. He had always been a firm believer in materialism, but seeing this changed everything. If this creature turned out to be hostile, it could mean a total catastrophe for the nation. "Everyone, aim at that floating monster," Wang Guotian commanded. His voice was cold. Until things were clear, he had to remain vigilant. In an instant, every soldier raised their rifles, sniper guns, and rocket launchers. These terrifying weapons were all aimed directly at Lu Qinghan's group and Chunqing. "No, don't fire. We are good people. This is the divine dragon. He is here to save us," Lu Qinghan shouted, facing the wall of firearms. Forcing herself to stay calm, she raised her hands and slowly walked forward. She approached the soldiers and looked directly at Wang Guotian. "General Wang, I want to talk to you." Since he was a general, her respect was only natural. "What is there to talk about?" he asked. "Not here," she replied. "I want to speak with you in private." Wang Guotian fell into deep thought for a moment. He eventually agreed to her request. After having female soldiers search her to ensure safety, he led her into his military vehicle. Once inside, Once inside, Lu Qinghan got straight to the point, telling General Wang that the creature was a dragon, a true divine dragon responsible for protecting their nation's sacred lineage. Why would the 12 zodiac signs include a non-existent creature? She asked earnestly. It was a question that, to be honest, left Wang Guotian momentarily stunned. He regained his composure and argued that dragons were myths, and this was likely just a monster that looked like one. He warned her not to be deceived by appearances. Realizing that only the truth would work now, Lu Qinghan decided to stop hiding it. She revealed that she was actually a regressor who had returned from the future. Upon hearing this, Wang Guotian's eyes widened in disbelief. He blurted out that it was absurd. How could such a thing as a regressor even exist? He coldly accused her of telling ridiculous lies just to protect the creature. Meanwhile, Lu Qinghan's mind was racing, desperately searching for a way to prove her words. Her eyes caught the date on the electronic clock inside the military vehicle, and she suddenly remembered something. "General, isn't there a world football match today?" She asked if the match was between the Great Power and the Stealth Nation. She recalled this specific game because, in her past life, she had a very vivid memory of it. Her father had been a huge fan, and he had dragged her into the living room to watch it the moment she got home. It was a rare moment of family bonding. It was the first match she had ever watched from start to finish, which is why the details remained etched in her mind. "It starts in an hour," Wang Guotian replied. He was a fan of the sport himself, so he was keeping track of the schedule. Lu Qinghan excitedly claimed she already knew the final result. She predicted the Great Power would score within the first 2 minutes, followed by a second goal from a bicycle kick. The final score, she claimed, would be 5-0. Wang Guotian found this impossible. He knew the Stealth Nation had elite players who were performing at their peak this year. A total shutout seemed highly unlikely. He couldn't imagine such a crushing victory. Lu Qinghan simply told him that since there was only an hour left, he could wait and see for himself. When he asked if she thought he had time to waste, she insisted he did, as this concerned the very future of their nation. She was here to save them all. She spoke with such absolute sincerity that Wang Guotian's resolve began to flicker. He started to wonder if this woman truly had come from the future. Of course, the idea of regression sounded like something straight out of a novel. It was hard to believe such a thing could happen in reality. After a moment of thought, he ordered his soldiers to stand down and rest, while the helicopters were told to circle for 1 hour before taking any further action. He decided to give her a chance. Seeing him issue the order, Lu Qinghan smiled with relief. Soon, a screen was brought in and tuned to the sports channel. We see them waiting as the hour passes and the match finally begins. Wang Guotian watched the screen with intense focus, waiting to see if the impossible would come true. As the match begins, we see Lu Qinghan radiating confidence, while the others remain utterly confused as to why they are suddenly watching a football game. Just 2 minutes in, the Great Power completes a perfect shot to score the first goal. At this moment, Wang Guotian is left completely speechless. He stares at the screen in disbelief. It was exactly 2 minutes, not a second off. He snaps his head toward Lu Qinghan with a look that says it all. He wonders if she truly is a regressor. The match proceeds smoothly until, half an hour later, a player from the Great Power executes a stunning bicycle kick. The ball sails into the net with perfect form, and Wang Guotian feels his heart skip a beat. She was right again. Even the manner of the goal was exact. This is an international match. After all, no matter how much influence Lu Qinghan might have, she couldn't possibly rig this. Finally, the game ends. Wang Guotian stares at the final score of 5-0. The Great Power has won a total victory. He slumps back into his seat and signals for the screen to be removed. After ordering the vehicle doors closed for privacy, he asks if she really did return from the future. At this point, he is at least half convinced. Lu Qinghan looks him in the eye and confirms she is here to save their nation, urging him to listen closely to what she has to say next. Seeing her expression so grave, Wang Guotian sits up straight and listens. She reveals that in 15 days, monsters will appear all across the globe. These are creatures that only exist in movies, yet they will manifest in reality to cause unimaginable destruction. It will be the end of the world. Wang Guotian's eyes widen as he processes this shocking information. She explains that no nation will be able to resist, except for their own. They will manage to survive for 3 months, but only because of the divine dragon. Sadly, she notes, the dragon was too weak to protect them forever. Under the siege of the monsters, it eventually perished. Hearing this, Wang Guotian looks through the window at the dragon, realizing their fate rests on its shoulders. Lu Qinghan tells him that if he still doubts her, he can check the seabed of High City in 5 days. There, he might find a cosmic wormhole. The monsters will emerge from these rifts, which will eventually appear everywhere. He realizes that if this is true, the dragon is indeed their only hope. She confirms that for the first few months, they must rely on the dragon because they lack the power to protect themselves. He then asks what he can do. Lu Qinghan pauses, considering the military's role, before proposing a bold idea. Could the entire nation help feed and nurture the divine dragon? Wang Guotian is stunned by the suggestion, wondering if the creature could even handle such a scale. He decides he must report this to his superiors immediately. The dragon's existence cannot be hidden forever. To get the nation's full support, he believes they should go public and let everyone know the dragon is real. A sudden realization shivers through Wang Guotian's heart. Yes, having the entire nation help feed and nurture the divine dragon to speed its growth, that was the path. It was, quite simply, the only correct way forward. I understand, he says, before leading his soldiers away, leaving the zoo to return to its usual quiet. Li Tianming asks in utter astonishment how she managed to get the army to withdraw so suddenly. She simply tells everyone to rest. Tomorrow, they open at night. Li Tianming is stunned, wondering if she's joking. The zoo isn't what it used to be, it has a dragon now, but she is serious about opening the gates. Lu Qinghan nods, explaining that the zoo has been renovated. Aside from the dragon's habitat, there are no other animals left in the park. Every other area has been cleared out. Now, the only thing for visitors to see is the dragon. She wants the entire world to come and feed him. The Lu family will handle the rest of the logistics, so the staff can leave for now. Li Tianming stands there speechless before finally nodding and departing. Before long, only Qin Qing and Lu Qinghan remain. She looks up at him and asks if the great dragon could perhaps take on a 100-meter form. Qin Qing immediately guesses her intention. She wants to use his presence to attract the entire nation and have them support his growth together. Since the secret can no longer be kept, this is the best way to ensure he grows quickly. Feeding a dragon with the help of billions? It sounds rather interesting. In an instant, Qin Qing's body coils and expands until he is 100 meters long, circling in the air with a blinding, golden radiance. With majestic, domineering claws, he looks down at Lu Qinghan, his voice now carrying a terrifying authority as he asks if she is satisfied. Lu Qinghan immediately calls her father. She is about to do something that will shake the entire country. What? You want to broadcast the dragon nationwide? In the chairman's office of the Lu Group, Lu Qingsong leaps to his feet. His daughter's incredible request has left him more than a little rattled. A national broadcast of a living dragon is no small matter. It will shock over 1 billion people. But she insists that time is running out. The divine dragon isn't fully developed yet, and they need more food than one family can provide. They need the collective strength of the people. Her words leave Lu Qingsong in deep thought. Imagine the sheer volume of food 1 billion people could provide. It's almost frightening to contemplate. He wonders if the dragon can even eat that much. Regardless, he agrees, noting he just acquired a streaming platform they can use for the broadcast. After hanging up, Lu Qingsong begins the operation. Meanwhile, back at the zoo, a fleet of drones begins to circle around Qin Qing's massive form. As the cameras aim toward him, Lu Qinghan quickly explains that these drones will transmit his image to the world starting tomorrow, broadcasting his existence so the entire nation knows who he is. Qin Qing understands the weight of this plan and gives a solemn nod. Before long, on a popular streaming platform, every single live channel suddenly turns black and white. A new, unified title appears across the site. Tomorrow at noon, we will witness the world's first live broadcast of a divine dragon. Countless viewers watching other streams find their screens abruptly closing. Staring at the new title, they are left in utter disbelief. What exactly does the world's first divine dragon even mean? People begin to panic in the comments, realizing that every single room on the platform has been taken over by this same message. They wonder if this is some kind of elaborate prank. After all, dragons are just myths used to deceive people, right? Many assume the platform has suffered a massive bug, but since they have to wait until tomorrow, they decide to return then. They want to see for themselves what this divine dragon nonsense is all about. An hour later, the topic has already exploded, becoming the #1 trending search in the world. Millions of curious souls flock to the news, eager to see what this mystery is. Meanwhile, we return to Wang Guotian, who has been keeping a very close eye on Lu Qinghan. When his soldiers report the news, he is stunned. It seems she truly intends to use the strength of the entire nation to nurture this dragon. Suddenly, his phone begins to ring. Seeing the caller ID, he catches his breath and quickly answers. Chief, is it true? Are you saying that monsters will truly appear in 15 days? The answer is a grim yes. It seems Lu Qinghan was right all along, as 10 days ago, a mysterious black hole was discovered appearing out of thin air in the middle of the ocean. Hearing the chief's words, Wang Guotian is shaken to his core. A black hole, yes, and from that void, 2 incredibly strange and terrifying creatures managed to crawl out. They looked somewhat human with long, spindly limbs, but their heads could split open like a grotesque flower, revealing rows upon rows of needle-sharp teeth. It took hundreds of bullets to finally bring them down. Their bodies have been taken for study, and to be honest, they don't match any known species on Earth. Wang Guotian pales as the realization hits him. These are the monsters Lu Qinghan warned them about. The chief announces he will arrive in Qin City tomorrow. He wants to see this so-called divine dragon with his own eyes. If it truly is the guardian of their nation, they cannot simply stand by and do nothing. With that, the line goes dead. Wang Guotian stands in silence for a long time. The end of the world is approaching, and their only hope rests on a dragon. If this is all true, they must act immediately. They must ensure the dragon grows as quickly as possible. By the next day, the habitat is once again piled high with food, but within minutes, the supply is gone. Qin Qing devours over 10 tons of food in an instant, yet his evolution points are barely moving. As his body grows larger, his hunger only becomes more demanding. He needs food with higher energy density to sustain his transformation. System, show me the status panel. Chen Qing commands in his mind, checking his progress. He is now a 5-clawed divine dragon in his growth phase, stretching 5,000 meters long and weighing 7,000 tons, possessing the terrifying power of the dragon's might. His abilities are staggering: human speech, divine dragon's wrath, dragon soul hardening, and even the power to summon wind, rain, and lightning. His evolution points now sit at 60,000. The system reminds him that he is still in his growth phase and must continue eating to reach adulthood. At this stage, Chen Qing has developed 2 of his claws. As a 5-clawed divine dragon, he will only reach his true complete form once all 5 claws have emerged. To get there, he needs significantly more food. Lu Qinghan approaches him, noting that the live broadcast is scheduled to begin in just half an hour. Yesterday, she registered accounts across every major streaming platform. Meanwhile, Lu Qingsong has prepared countless virtual rooms on his newly acquired platform. As the stream begins, the zoo will also officially open its gates to the public. To ensure everything goes smoothly, they have hired tens of thousands of security guards from across the country. This is, after all, the most important broadcast in history. Chen Qing gives a simple nod of understanding. Today, his entire majestic form will be revealed to the eyes of the nation for the very first time. The world's first and only divine dragon is about to set the internet ablaze. As the countdown to the broadcast nears its end, the anticipation is palpable. Millions of people are already huddled in the digital waiting rooms, eager to see what this divine dragon actually looks like. It won't be long now. With noon approaching, the comments are a chaotic mix of skepticism and wonder. Many insist it must be a hoax or perhaps just high-end special effects. Others wonder how every single channel could be showing the same thing if it were fake. Some suspect it's just a massive marketing stunt by the Lu Group. Regardless of the theories, everyone knows the truth will be revealed at 12 o'clock. As the seconds tick by, the screens suddenly flicker to life. A young woman appears on screen, her beauty rivaling that of a top movie star. Her sweet, professional smile fills the frame, immediately catching the viewer's attention. While some are distracted by her appearance, most are there for one reason only. The comments quickly fill with demands to see the dragon instead of the host. They aren't interested in a pretty face today. They want to know where the divine dragon is hiding. And who could blame them, really? The host wastes no time and invites everyone to witness the divine dragon. Suddenly, a fleet of drones pivots in unison to focus on the distance. When the golden, shimmering scales first appear on screen, the frantic comments stop instantly. A collective gasp seems to ripple through the entire online world. As the camera pulls back to reveal his full, majestic form, it feels as though time itself has stopped. Chen Qing's powerful, commanding eyes lock onto the drone. In that moment, countless viewers feel a chill run down their spines. Some are so overwhelmed by his sheer presence that they find themselves falling to their knees. People describe their legs turning to jelly as they stare at the screen. It feels as if those eyes could reach through the glass and strike them down. The comments are a storm of disbelief, with people asking if this is truly a divine dragon or just top-tier special effects. To be honest, if it is CGI, it's the best the world has ever seen. Others joke that if this is a trick, the Lu Group is now the greatest tech company on Earth. But for many, the sheer majesty of the dragon is so overwhelming they can only call out for their mothers. We see viewers across the nation dropping their phones, unable to maintain eye contact with the screen. They bow their heads, gasping for air, as Lu Qinghan's voice continues to drift from their speakers. She addresses the dragon, noting that the world still doubts his existence, and asks him to truly shake the foundations of their reality. No sooner has she spoken than a sound erupts from every device. A thunderous, earth-shattering dragon roar echoes through countless homes. In an instant, people are clutching their chests and covering their ears, collapsing to the floor in a state of pure, primal terror. That roar felt as though it pierced through their very eardrums, striking their hearts and vibrating deep within their souls. It was a moment of absolute, bone-chilling shock for everyone watching. Among the viewers is Ma Dong, a dedicated animal lover. As he listens to that roar, his body begins to tremble uncontrollably, and a cold sweat breaks out across his skin. He realizes with a shudder that no known animal on this planet could ever produce such a sound. It is either a synthesized masterpiece or, as he begins to fear, a genuine dragon. Suddenly, a low rumble of thunder echoes from outside Ma Dong's own home. The storm outside perfectly synchronizes with the dragon's roar on his phone, pushing his fear to the absolute limit. When a second roar erupts, Ma Dong freezes in total disbelief. He realizes the sound isn't coming from his phone anymore. It is coming from the sky right outside his window. Stunned, he rushes to the window and flings back the curtains. What he sees leaves him speechless. The clear, sunny sky from just moments ago has vanished entirely. In its place, thick, dark clouds have gathered with impossible speed, casting a heavy, oppressive shadow over the entire city of Qingxiu. The atmosphere is thick with tension as the darkness settles over the streets below. Ma Dong is now certain that the divine dragon is hidden within those storm clouds. A massive bolt of purple lightning streaks across the heavens, illuminating the swirling vortex above. For a split second, a colossal silhouette is visible, coiling and swimming through the clouds like a mythic beast brought to life. It is a presence that defies all logic and science. It's the dragon. It's really the divine dragon. Ma Dong shouts in excitement. He looks back at his phone, where the camera is now pointed directly at the same storm clouds above him. Lu Qinghan's voice rings out, telling the people of Qingshu to simply look up to see the dragon for themselves. And they do, by the thousands. People across the city drop what they are doing and rush to their balconies and doorways. They stare into the flashing lightning, searching for the master of the storm. When they see that massive shadow moving through the thunderheads, the city erupts in a wave of collective emotion. The divine dragon of legend is no longer just a story. He is real. The realization that a divine dragon truly exists in China sparks a frenzy of prayers and wishes. People begin to beg for luck and fortune as the dragon reveals himself to the world. We witness a truly rare and somewhat comical sight as people across the city begin to drop to their knees in the streets or in their homes, bowing toward the divine presence in the storm clouds. They offer up their deepest prayers and wishes, though Chen Qing, watching from above, has no intention of granting them. Seeing that he has captured the city's full attention, he begins to disperse the dark clouds. As the thunderheads melt away, his full form is revealed to the eyes of countless onlookers. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd as they realize this is no special effect or movie scene. This is reality. A divine dragon truly exists in their world. In an instant, the shock turns into a frenzy as thousands of people pull out their phones to capture photos and videos. This was exactly the effect Chen Qing was looking for, to ensure the news of his existence spread like wildfire across the digital landscape. And spread it did, with terrifying speed. Even after the dragon vanishes from the sky, the public's excitement remains at a fever pitch. Meanwhile, Lu Qinghan's broadcast hasn't ended. She announces that the dragon resides at the Qin City Zoo. She invites anyone who wishes to feed the dragon to bring meat, as he accepts nothing else. With that final, startling instruction, the live stream cuts to black, leaving the viewers in a state of stunned silence. While the footage was undeniably breathtaking, a wave of skepticism still lingers among those convinced it must be high-end CGI. To be honest, such disbelief is only natural in a world of technology. However, as more photos and videos from different angles begin to flood the internet, the narrative shifts. One person might lie, but can thousands of independent witnesses all be wrong? On Weibo, the nation's largest social media platform, the chaos reaches the eyes of Minister Shun. As he scrolls through the endless stream of dragon sightings, he feels a cold shiver run down his spine. To him, this looks like a massive, coordinated hoax. He simply cannot accept that a divine dragon could exist in the modern world, dismissing the entire event as a dangerous fabrication. He immediately orders his staff to scrub the photos and videos from the internet to prevent further panic. But less than 10 minutes after giving the order, his phone rings with a call from his superior. The order is reversed. Do not delete the footage. The dragon is real, and the government wants to increase the visibility of the event so that everyone knows the truth. Back at the military camp, Wang Guotian watches the videos in utter disbelief. The creature is capable of summoning wind, rain, and lightning, exactly as the ancient myths described the divine dragon. He realizes that the monster he encountered at the Qin City Zoo was indeed a legendary deity. Just then, his superior calls him, and he answers with a sharp, disciplined salute. The chief asks if he has seen the videos and confirms if the creature in the footage is the same one he saw in person. When Wang Guotian confirms it, he is ordered back for an emergency meeting. Hearing the word meeting, Wang Guotian hesitates for a moment before asking if he can bring Lu Qinghan along. He knows her knowledge of the situation is far deeper than his own. The chief remains silent for a beat before agreeing. If she truly has returned from the future, she is the most critical asset they have. Meanwhile, we return to the zoo, which is facing a literal explosion of visitors. Now that Chen Qing has revealed himself, it seems as though the entire population of Qin City has arrived at the gates. They surge into the zoo, following the signs toward the dragon's habitat. When they finally arrive, they are met with the sight of the colossal beast floating silently in midair. His dragon eyes are closed, but his presence is enough to bring the entire crowd to a standstill. As Chen Qing drifts into a deep sleep, the crowd below is swept up in a wave of pure awe, shouting that a divine dragon truly exists in their city. They beg the great dragon for health and wealth, marveling at how majestic he looks, exactly as the ancient myths described him. To be honest, he is quite a sight. One by one, they bow to their own desires, but the rules are strict. Each person gets only 1 minute before being ushered away to make room for others. If they wish to see the dragon again, they must return with more food. It is a simple, if somewhat transactional, arrangement for a deity. Within a single hour, they collect 5 tons of meat. Lu Qinghan smiles, calculating that with today's other purchases, they have 20 tons, surely enough for the dragon to grow. She has noticed that Chen Qing's appetite has become enormous lately, yet his growth seems slow. Perhaps he simply hasn't been eating enough for a being of his stature. After all, raising a divine dragon isn't as simple as keeping a common pet. He is like a bottomless pit requiring an endless supply of sustenance. Just then, her phone rings. It is Wang Guotian, and as she listens, her eyes brighten with the realization that the great plan for China has finally begun. She tells herself that this time, they will not repeat the mistakes of the past. By evening, the dragon incident has completely detonated across the internet. Countless people flock to Qin City, desperate for a glimpse of the legend. Curiously, no officials have stepped in to explain, debunk, or delete the footage. The lack of censorship leads the public to a startling conclusion. If it were a hoax, it would have been blocked already. And so, a realization begins to take root. A terrifying yet wondrous thought grows in their hearts. The divine dragon is real. Meanwhile, Lu Qinghan arrives at the military base in Long City as requested. There, we see her meet Wang Guotian and the other dragon generals of China. Such a gathering of power can only be for one purpose: the dragon. Led by Wang Guotian, she enters a meeting room where the other generals eye her with suspicion. To be fair, she does look a bit out of place. While everyone else is in formal military uniform, Lu Qinghan is dressed in casual clothes, making her stand out like a sore thumb among the high-ranking officers. Wang Guotian introduces her with a smile, explaining that she is the daughter of Lu Qingsong, the wealthiest man in the country. A useful connection indeed. Lu Qinghan stands and greets them with a calm smile. Having lived through a previous life, her mindset is far beyond that of an ordinary person. She feels no nerves. Soon, an elderly man enters the room. At his sight, Wang Guotian and the other generals snap to attention, saluting in perfect, disciplined unison. They greet the chief loudly, and Lu Qinghan follows suit, her eyes fixed on the white-haired man and the two dragon head insignias on his shoulders. This is the highest-ranking general in the land. Li Tsong nods, taking his seat first, before turning his sharp gaze directly toward Lu Qinghan. Miss Lu, let's get straight to the point, Li Tsong begins. I've heard you come from the future. This single sentence leaves everyone except Wang Guotian in a state of absolute shock. Coming from the future? To them, it sounds like an utter absurdity. And yet, they wonder why the chief would even ask such a thing. After all, this is a military base, not a place for fairy tales. This is a military camp. There's no room for nonsense here, one general remarks, suggesting the chief might have been deceived. Li Tsong doesn't answer him directly. Instead, he turns to the group with a question. He asks if they've seen today's news regarding the divine dragon. Some look completely bewildered, while others, who have seen the footage, admit that they are aware of the incident. Chief, do you truly believe this is real? One asks. I believe it is. Li Tsong nods firmly. The others are stunned. They can hardly believe the chief is taking this seriously. Even Lu Qinghan is taken aback. She hadn't expected the chief to believe her so easily, remembering how much effort it took to convince Wang Guotian. To be honest, she had prepared a much longer speech. She had been mentally rehearsing how to persuade Li Tsong, but now, it seems that won't be necessary. Let me show you all something, Li Tsong says, signaling a soldier to operate the screen. A photo slowly appears on the display. While the generals look on in confusion, Lu Qinghan suddenly stands up, her face pale as she cries out, "A man-eater." Seeing her reaction, Li Tsong allows a small smile to form. His hunch was correct. So, Miss Lu, you recognize this creature? He asks, his voice calm but calculating. This was a test. If she truly returned from the future, she would inevitably know this monster. Watching her terrified reaction, he is now certain. This woman has indeed seen the days to come. I know it, she says. This monster will appear in 14 days. It's called a man-eater. They are incredibly fast, and they possess a strange, soul-shaking cry. She explains how they can swallow a person whole and possess bodies so durable that they can withstand heavy firepower for several minutes. It is a grim picture of the near future. Lu Qinghan recalls her past life, remembering the time she watched an entire squad struggle against a single man-eater. It was a desperate, bloody affair that stayed with her forever. It took hundreds of rounds and several minutes of sustained fire just to kill one. It was a shocking sight. Later, the government officially named them man-eaters, a species of humanoid monsters. They are terrifying creatures, perhaps even more frightening than the giant beasts, because they hide in the shadows and lunge out without warning to consume their prey. A nightmare in the dark, essentially. As they listen to her, the generals feel as though they are hearing a tall tale. Only Li Tsong and Wang Guotian remain heavy-hearted, for they know her words are rooted in a dark reality. Miss Lu, please tell them what else will happen in the future, Li Tsong requests. She reveals that in 14 days, monsters will appear all over the world. The room falls into a panicked silence. If this is true, it means the end of the world is approaching. The dragon generals look toward Li Tsong, caught between skepticism and the terrifying possibility that she might be right. They wonder if they should really trust the words of this young woman. Things have come to this. We have no choice but to believe, Li Tsong says, his voice heavy with authority. He looks at the screen and explains that these monsters were recently discovered during a secret investigation. Their research shows they don't belong to any known species on Earth. Even the most brilliant scientists couldn't identify the origin of this creature. Yet Lu Qinghan recognized it instantly. To Li Tsong, this was the final proof she was likely from the future. he realized she had no reason to lie to them. With only 14 days left, we see the weight of the situation settle over the room as the generals fall into a heavy, contemplative silence. Miss Liu, do you know where the first monster will appear in our country? Li Tsong asks, his eyes fixed on her. In the dormitory area, she replies without a moment's hesitation. She could never forget that day. The first monster emerged right where she lived. She had planned to go out for fun, only to find herself face to face with a nightmare instead. If the divine dragon hadn't soared out from the nearby zoo, she would have died then and there. When asked for the exact location, she confirms it was right next to that very zoo. The divine dragon saved me in my past life, she explains. I've returned to save our nation by ensuring the dragon has everything it needs to grow. The room is stunned by her resolve. The idea of saving the country by nurturing a dragon sounds like a myth, but she insists time is running out. To her, the dragon is the only key to their survival. I know what you're thinking. Building a walled city to keep the monsters out, right? She looks at Li Tsong, who is visibly shaken. That was, in fact, exactly what he was considering. He had been envisioning a modern Great Wall to hold back the tide, but he hadn't expected her to read his mind. When he asks how she knew, her answer is chillingly simple. Because you made that same decision in my past life, she says. Back then, I thought it was a brilliant plan. Now I know better. It was a mistake. She reveals that the massive fortifications people spent a month building were utterly destroyed by the monsters in less than a minute. Li Tsong is deeply shaken by this revelation. He had placed his hopes in steel and concrete, only to learn it might all be in vain. Must we rely solely on the dragon? He asks. Yes, she replies, and I have a plan. However, this plan requires the dragon's cooperation. When Li Tsong asks for details, she suggests they might ask the divine dragon for a small amount of its blood. Her theory is that they could develop a genetic serum to make humans stronger. Since they are the descendants of the dragon, perhaps dragon blood is the catalyst they need. It is a bold, perhaps even desperate idea, and its success is entirely dependent on the dragon's consent. Li Tsong is startled, realizing this might actually be their best shot. Lu Qinghan speaks with a grim gravity, emphasizing that their priority must be the dragon's growth. Only when he is powerful enough will they have any real protection. Conventional weapons won't be enough to stop what's coming, not even nuclear ones. She knows of a creature that can actually absorb nuclear energy, a terrifying prospect indeed. She calls it Godzilla, a monster born near the Eastern Islands that becomes one of the future's greatest horrors. The generals are speechless. Even their ultimate weapons might be useless. I understand, Li Tsong says, reaching a decision. We begin the feeding project immediately. I will authorize the global purchase of massive amounts of food for the dragon. He acts quickly, realizing that if their future depends on the divine dragon, they must do everything in their power to ensure its rise. And so, the preparations begin. Moreover, obtaining the genetic serum would require the divine dragon's consent, a crucial first step in building their alliance. At this very moment, the National Nurturing Project officially begins. The next day, when Chen Qing wakes up, dozens of tons of food are already waiting for him. With just a few bites, he finishes it all. He soon notices the crowds gathered around, all having come just to see him. When they see him wake, they are beyond excited, but he merely glances at them before drifting back to sleep. It isn't until Lu Qinghan arrives at noon that he truly wakes. Great Dragon, I have good news. After our meeting, the state has decided to begin a nationwide feeding program. Your food supply will soon increase tenfold. Hearing this, Chen Qing feels a surge of relief. He promises that he will do his utmost to protect the nation, a vow that carries immense weight. Upon hearing these words, Lu Qinghan is overjoyed. The onlookers nearby are equally stunned to hear the divine dragon speaking in a human tongue. Again, they bow in gratitude. Lu Qinghan conveys this promise word for word to Li Tsong and the others, who feel a profound sense of peace. With the dragon's word, they can proceed with confidence. Great Dragon, I have a humble request, she adds. Could you grant us a small amount of your blood? Chen Qing understands immediately. They want to use his blood to create a serum to strengthen humanity. It reminds him of the old movies, where heroes like Captain America were made through science. If it's his blood, could they become even stronger? But he wonders if it's truly feasible. He consults his system internally. The answer is yes, but with a warning. Dragon blood is the most terrifying energy on Earth. A single drop must be diluted 100 million times. Otherwise, a fragile human body would simply explode. Having received his answer, Chen Qing looks toward Lu Qinghan and signals his understanding. He agrees to the request, knowing the stakes. After all, since their massive orders are strictly for food, the international community has no reason to be suspicious. The nation's leaders will surely find every way to clear out their meat reserves. As long as the quality isn't too poor, he'll take it. The dragon needs quantity, and they hope he'll be satisfied with the offering. Soon, another call comes in from the procurement department. 300 tons of meat have been secured domestically. Good. Immediately, transport it to Qin City. In Qin City, we see Chen Qing floating lazily in midair. Lately, he has been consuming hundreds of tons of food daily, and his size has become truly gargantuan. Chen Qing, the five-clawed divine dragon, has reached a growth stage length of 30,000 meters and a weight of 45,000 tons. His skills now include Dragon Majesty, Spatial Claws, Dragon Sense, Human Speech, Dragon's Wrath, Soul Hardening, and the power to command the wind, rain, and lightning. He now commands thunder and gold, traverses the void, and resonates with the earth and seasons. With 13,000 evolution points, if he were to fully release his form, he would reach 30,000 meters and weigh 450,000 tons, a truly terrifying creature. However, these points are accumulating far too slowly, as ordinary meat no longer satisfies him. Just then, we see over a dozen helicopters approaching from the distance, each carrying a massive bundle filled with meat. As they descend and release their cargo, piles of fresh meat spill out across the ground. One fleet leaves only for another to arrive, repeating this cycle over 100 times. Every single delivery is packed with nothing but meat. Looking at the mountains of food before him, hundreds of tons, as expected, Chenqing opens his mouth and draws it all in with a powerful breath. The meal is a success, yet it only grants him 3,000 evolution points. For hundreds of tons of food, that is a meager reward indeed. Lu Qinghan and her team went searching for something better today. Great Dragon, we have returned. Not long after, she arrives with a convoy of vehicles. The trucks are loaded with crates which, when opened, reveal items bursting with high energy. There is a 5,000-year-old turtle, rich in essence, and 3,000-year-old spirit reishi mushrooms, all of them high-energy foods or fruits. In total, there are 11 such treasures. Set them down, Chenqing says calmly. Lu Qinghan immediately has the wooden crates unloaded. With a single thought from Chenqing, the contents of the boxes float into the air and fly directly into his mouth. He swallows them in one gulp, gaining 15,000 evolution points instantly. His golden dragon eyes flash as his body grows even larger. Though he uses his divine powers to hide his true scale, his mass and length have increased, and he has gained a new skill called Dragon Frost. Not bad. Continue your search. These are very useful to me, Chenqing tells Lu Qinghan. Hearing this, Lu Qinghan smiles, feeling honored to help the Great Dragon grow stronger. Of course, Great Dragon, we will do our absolute best to find more. Days pass, and we are now only 5 days away from the arrival of the monsters. Every day, the army delivers hundreds of tons of food, while Lu Qinghan's family scours the land for high-energy treasures. Chenqing's growth is staggering. He has surpassed 170,000 evolution points. Along with his massive size and weight, he has gained the skill of invisibility. Meanwhile, the world senses something is wrong and an emergency meeting is called, demanding that Huaxia explain itself. Li Tsong looks at the silent international representatives, wondering if he should speak. After a moment, he decides to tell the truth, whether they believe it or not. Since you supported our massive orders, I will tell you. In 5 days, the end of the world is coming. You should prepare your defenses. Leaving them with that single sentence, Li Tsong departed. He felt no need to say more. Whether they believed him or not was now up to them. After Li Tsong left, the room erupted in astonished chatter, wondering if the Huaxia representative was lying. Meanwhile, at the Huaxia Research Institute, a group of scientists in white coats were studying a high-energy serum when suddenly, a loud shout rang out. I've done it. The Divine Dragon Serum has been developed. At those words, the other scientists dropped their work and rushed toward the man. On his table sat a vial containing a shimmering golden serum. They wondered if this truly was the legendary Divine Dragon Serum they had hoped for. They checked the cell activity, eager to see the results of 10 days of tireless work. Now, they needed to move to human trials as quickly as possible. If it worked on humans, every citizen of Huaxia could become like a dragon. This breakthrough would push their genetic research far beyond historical limits. The scientists shouted with excitement. If this serum proved effective, Huaxia would surpass every other nation in the field of genetic engineering. And if mass-produced, it would change the very nature of their people. Once the results were confirmed, someone immediately reported the news to Li Tsong. Hearing that the serum was ready, Li Tsong rushed to the institute. When he finally laid eyes on the Divine Dragon Serum, he couldn't hide his joy. It was a moment of pure triumph. He ordered human trials to begin immediately, though he knew the selection process for the first subject would be critical. The trial required someone with an exceptionally strong constitution, fearing a weaker body might not withstand the strain. By evening, a candidate was chosen. The man was an orphan, physically powerful, and deemed the perfect fit. In a secure laboratory, the scientists gathered alongside a group of soldiers. Li Tsong stood at the front, facing the imposing man who would be their first test subject, a brave soul named Qianlong. Qianlong, if you feel any discomfort, shout immediately and we will terminate the experiment, Li Tsong warned. Qianlong simply stood at attention. Understood, he shouted. With a nod from Li Tsong, the scientists moved forward to fit Qianlong with equipment and secure him inside a steel chamber. They sealed the chamber, preparing to release the serum's essence. The lead scientist reminded him once more to speak up if anything felt wrong. With a sharp pull of a lever, the machines began to roar. Inside the steel chamber, the essence of the Divine Dragon Serum was finally released. Li Tsong and the others took a few steps back. Suddenly, a scream echoed from inside the chamber, causing everyone's hearts to tighten with worry. Li Tsong immediately shouted to stop the process. The scientist reached for the lever, but a voice from inside cried out, "No, don't stop. I can handle this." Inside the chamber, Chunlong's shout echoed with such conviction that Li Tsong froze, eventually signaling the scientists to step back. He took several steps away, his mind racing with a single thought: please, let him be all right. The lead scientist nodded and pulled the lever to open the hatch, releasing a thick cloud of red gas from within. Soldiers in oxygen masks immediately formed a perimeter around Li Tsong to ensure his safety as the doors slowly creaked open. We see Chunlong lying there, eyes tightly shut and completely motionless, causing everyone to gasp in collective dread. Li Tsong ordered them to release the restraints immediately, but even as the scientists complied, Chunlong remained deathly still. A heavy silence fell over the room as they wondered if the serum had failed or if the energy had simply overwhelmed his body. Just as Li Tsong stepped forward to check for a pulse, Chunlong's eyes snapped open, glowing with a brilliant golden light. The soldiers reacted instantly, shouting in unison to protect the general as they moved to block the transformed man's path. The aura radiating from Chunlong carried such immense pressure that it left the guards trembling in genuine shock. They wondered if this was still the same man who had entered the chamber or if he had become something else entirely. Chunlong looked down at his clenched fists, feeling an unparalleled power surging through his veins before reporting that he was unharmed. Hearing those words, Li Tsong let out a long breath of relief, realizing that the Divine Dragon Serum was a resounding success. The laboratory erupted into cheers as the scientists realized their tireless efforts had finally reached a historic breakthrough. Once the initial excitement settled, Li Tsong wasted no time and ordered the physical performance tests to begin. With a firm nod from the general, Chunlong stepped up to the heavy-duty punching machine to demonstrate his new strength. He threw a single, full-power strike that sent the massive testing apparatus flying 10 meters away into the grass. The machine was completely totaled, leaving Li Tsong and the observers staring in absolute, wide-eyed disbelief. To be honest, it was terrifying to realize that even a diluted version of the serum could turn an ordinary man into a Superman. It makes one wonder, if a single drop of the Divine Dragon's blood is this potent, how powerful must the creature itself be? If a mere drop can make a human this strong, the creature itself must be terrifyingly powerful. It truly is a divine dragon. What truly shocked everyone wasn't just the serum's potency, but the realization of how formidable the dragon must be. After all, if a diluted sample creates such strength, the source must be beyond imagination, and in the following tests, Chunlong proved it. His performance was superhuman, leaving Li Tsong feeling immensely relieved and grateful that he had chosen to trust Lu Qinghan. Without that trust, they never would have obtained the serum. Now, they stood on the threshold of an era where every man could be a dragon. With the Divine Dragon on their side, the monsters seemed less daunting, and Li Tsong excitedly declared that the future belonged to Huaxia. He immediately ordered the full-scale development of the serum, promising to find a way to secure more of the dragon's blood. Since the experiment was a success, he knew they were on the right track. Mass production was the next logical step for the nation. The blood, the lifeblood of Huaxia, the divine dragons, very essence, belonged to Huaxia. The divine dragons' blood was the key. Meanwhile, the massive tiger carcass from earlier was being rushed in. It looked like an ordinary tiger, yet its size was truly gargantuan. The international community wanted their resources back, but Li Tsong found the idea of returning what they had already paid for to be a total pipe dream. He coldly told them he would consider it before shutting off the screen and immediately arranging a helicopter to the Qin estate. At the Qin Zoo, Lu Qinghan had just returned from Dragon City to report that the military had appointed her as the monster liaison. The newly appointed manager, Lu Qinghan, smiled as she recalled how Li Tsong had proposed this plan to her before she left the meeting. She felt it was entirely feasible. However, she hadn't expected him to put her in charge of everything at the Monster Center, a facility, as the name suggests, built entirely for the sake of monsters. Her mission was to prepare for the monsters that would inevitably appear in the future, and she knew exactly how to manage it because, in her past life, Huaxia had already established such a center. The only difference now was that her rebirth had allowed the center to be founded much earlier than before, when its original purpose was simply to collect monster carcasses for research. They would bring the remains back to the labs to be studied. It was a grim but necessary task. That's excellent. I wish you success, Chunlong said. Over the time they had spent together, he and Lu Qinghan had become genuine friends. He might look like a dragon on the outside, but his heart remained human, making their friendship feel perfectly natural. She visited him daily to share interesting stories, which he enjoyed immensely. I know exactly what to do, great divine dragon, Lu Qinghan replied with a nod, feeling deeply honored to receive his blessing. Suddenly, the rhythmic thumping of a helicopter echoed from the distance as it descended toward the ground. Li Tsong stepped out of the craft, looking every bit the commander. "Generally, what brings you here?" Lu Qinghan asked, slightly surprised. He smiled and asked her how the Monster Center was progressing. She laughed softly and told him that things were going well. She had already organized 3 specialized units: the Cleanup Force, the Collection Force, and the Emergency Response Force. The Cleanup Force was tasked with killing monsters, retrieving their bodies, and then meticulously restoring the battlefield to its original state. The Collection Force, as we might guess, focused on gathering specific body parts, scattered remains, and vital genetic samples for the Research Institute. Finally, the Emergency Response Force would deploy the moment a monster appeared to evacuate and protect the citizens while holding the line. As she explained this, Li Tsong was visibly impressed by how comprehensive her preparations were, remarking that Huaxiao was truly fortunate to have her. She modestly replied that these were simply systems from the future that she had brought forward. "It's better than us fumbling in the dark," he admitted. Having a regressor who could grasp the future was a stroke of luck. Without Lu Qinghan, they wouldn't even know that the monsters were coming. "By the way, something major happened today," Li Tsong noted. "Has the monster arrival moved up?" he asked before recounting the day's events. Lu Qinghan was stunned. She had never heard of such an event in her previous life, though she suspected the government might have kept it secret to avoid panic. Perhaps the panic was suppressed and the news hidden back then, so they never knew. But times have changed, and as the manager of the Monster Center, she certainly had the right to know now. Lu Qinghan shook her head, admitting she didn't think it was monster-related, which left Li Tsong quite stunned. It was rare to find something Lu Qinghan didn't know, but a moment later, Chen Qing, who had been silent, finally spoke, suggesting he might have the answer. Both of them immediately looked up at Chen Qing, waiting for his insight. He noted that besides high-energy food, there was nothing else. Since Li Tsong mentioned they were all animals, it confirmed his suspicions about the cause. As for why they were only discovered today, that remained a mystery. Li Tsong pondered for a moment, wondering if these animals also contained high energy. He asked if the dragon needed him to fetch them, and we see Chen Qing's eyes light up. It was a brilliant idea, as animals eating that food would be full of energy. Their meat would be far superior to ordinary food. Chen Qing agreed, stating that if Li Tsong brought them all, he would grant them another drop of his blood. Chen Qing knew exactly why Li Tsong had come. It wasn't just for the animals. He had heard Lu Qinghan mention that the serum research was a success. He correctly guessed that Li Tsong was here for his blood. To be honest, Li Tsong was startled that the great divine dragon had seen right through him. He bowed his head in awe, thinking how terrifyingly perceptive the dragon was to know his every intention before he even spoke a word. However, his fears soon turned to joy. If food was all it took to get the dragon's blood, the solution was simple. He just needed to negotiate for those animals. He believed that by offering half of the 1,000 tons of food, the others would surely agree. Meanwhile, Lu Qinghan asked if the serum was fully developed. She didn't have the clearance to follow that specific progress, but Li Tsong confirmed that through their tireless efforts, they had formulated the best version. The human limit was 100 units of diluted serum, though a stronger individual might handle 200. Their first subject, Chen Long, had already been injected with 200 units and was now frighteningly strong, the world's first true superhuman. They even compared him to a movie hero. They found he was even more impressive than the captain from the films, capable of pulling helicopters or lifting tanks with absolute ease. Chen Long could even stop a pistol bullet with his bare flesh, though a high-powered rifle might still cause him injury. It was a staggering leap for humanity. Since they were humans transformed by the dragon's blood, they were named Dragon Men. Hearing this, Lu Qinghan smiled, feeling a sense of relief for the future. She believed that in the future, every human could be like a dragon and no longer fear the monsters. Li Tsong agreed, noting they owed it all to the dragon. Li Tsong bowed deeply before looking up, promising the great divine dragon he would secure those animal carcasses, though it would require sharing some of their food supplies. Chen Qing nodded, realizing that ordinary food was no longer sufficient as it provided too few evolution points. He craved more high-energy sustenance before Li Tsong departed. Chen Qing granted him a single drop of his blood, and in return, Li Tsong promised to deliver the carcasses by the following morning without fail. That single drop could create another elite Dragon Man or 1,000,000 standard superhumans, as the current goal was to transform the entire military into Dragon Men first. The plan was to transform all of humanity once mass production became possible. After all, making every person like a dragon was more than just a slogan. With only 2 days left until the monsters were set to appear, Li Tsong sent teams to deliver the massive animal carcasses collected from various nations. Some had already begun to rot, but for Chen Qing's divine order, decay was no obstacle at all. He swallowed them whole, gaining 23,000 evolution points. In an instant, his massive body grew even larger, and he unlocked a new skill called All Things Have Spirit, which allowed him to find a deep inner calm. He could now hear the voices of all things, from plants and trees to the creatures of the sea, land, and air, though he wondered how useful this truly was. Lu Qinghan then approached, explaining that the military had developed new weapons and humbly asked if the great divine dragon would be willing to test them. Chen Qing was momentarily stunned and asked for clarification, only to learn that they essentially wanted him to act as a target for their new arsenal. Lu Qinghan looked a bit embarrassed. 10 days ago, after learning of the impending monster threat, Li Tsong had led a team to develop these specialized weapons. Based on her descriptions of the thick-skinned monsters to come, they had used the hide of the Tin Man monster to engineer new types of armor-piercing bullets. Their initial designs could pierce 80 centimeters of steel plate, but by today, they had developed rounds capable of penetrating a staggering 120 centimeters. While these could easily kill a Tin Man monster, they wanted the all-powerful dragon to test their limits, an idea Lu Qinghan initially thought was far too offensive. However, since Li Tsong and the others had pleaded with her to ask, she braced herself and spoke up. To her surprise, Chen Qing simply nodded his consent. As it turned out, he was also curious to see just how strong he had become and whether he could withstand the full might of modern military weaponry. Lu Qinghan snapped her head up, her eyes wide with disbelief that the great divine dragon had actually agreed to such an unexpected and bold request. Chen Qing asked where the experiment would take place, and as they prepared to head to the border, Lu Qinghan hurried to call General Li Tsong with the news. Upon hearing the dragon had agreed, Li Tsong was both shocked and overjoyed, immediately arranging for a transport team to collect Lu Qinghan and the great divine dragon. As Lu Qinghan suggested waiting for Li Tsong's transport, Chen Qing calmly interjected, offering to carry her himself as golden light radiated from his massive claws. His shimmering, majestic claws gently grasped Lu Qinghan, careful not to exert any real pressure. After all, he had no desire to accidentally crush her into a pulp. As they began to ascend, Lu Qinghan watched the ground recede and couldn't help but cry out in pure, unadulterated excitement at the sheer thrill of the moment. Being held in the palm of the great divine dragon was a first-time experience for her, a sensation that felt incredibly stimulating, mysterious, and altogether wonderful. Hearing her constant screams below him, Chen Qing simply told her to hold on tight. She quickly gripped the dragon's scales, marveling at their strange, ancient texture. She soon realized a potential problem, noting they didn't actually know the location, but Chen Qing assured her that a single flight around would reveal everything. Before accelerating, Chen Qing exhaled a breath of golden dragon energy to envelop Lu Qinghan, protecting her from being overwhelmed by the powerful atmospheric currents. In an instant, they were soaring through the sky, and we see Chen Qing's body begin to expand, stretching from 1,000 meters to 10,000, then 20,000. He continued to grow until he reached a staggering 70,000 meters in length, a golden titan roaming freely among the blue sky and white clouds. A dragon of that size is, naturally, quite difficult to miss. Onlookers below realized he had left the zoo and marveled at the magnificent sight of his endless body. People began praying for fortune, calling it an absolute miracle, while children pointed toward the sky in awe. It was, to be honest, a sight beyond imagination. Believing themselves to be descendants of the dragon, people along the roads fell to their knees, watching the sky with eyes full of deep, sincere devotion. The appearance of the divine dragon was the most spectacular miracle any of them would see in their lifetimes, leaving a profound impact on every city he passed. Every person who caught a glimpse felt a sudden, instinctive urge to surrender, driven largely by the psychological weight of the ancient legends they held dear. Having grown up with myths of dragons as gods, they believed that seeing one would bring fulfillment to their hearts, and who could blame them for such hope? In every story, dragons were the ultimate life forms, and Chen Qing's presence certainly lived up to that reputation as he moved with effortless, overwhelming power. Even from thousands of meters up, his dragon pressure radiated down to the earth, filling countless souls with a mixture of primal fear and a desire to serve. The world was soon flooded with photos and videos of the event, and the divine dragon instantly became the top trending topic across the entire nation. Many who had previously doubted the legends were forced to change their minds once they witnessed the truth with their own eyes. The dragon was real. Looking down from her high vantage point, Lu Qinghan felt a deep sense of reflection as she watched the sea of people kneeling in reverence far below. To survive and thrive in the coming chaos, one must grow strong. After flying for some time, Chen Qing finally spotted Li Tsong near the border. As he and Lu Qinghan rapidly approached the military base, the radar detected an unknown, massive biological entity, sending the soldiers into a state of panic. Just as they prepared to launch anti-aircraft missiles, the creature began to shrink. On the ground, Li Tsong and his men felt a terrifying pressure descend. Looking up, they saw the 100-meter-long divine dragon descending rapidly while holding Lu Qinghan. The soldiers finally realized it was the dragon. The sight of the legendary creature left them breathless as it gracefully neared the landing zone. Lu Qinghan landed steadily and smiled at Li Tsong, apologizing for the surprise. He admitted he had just sent a team to fetch her, not expecting this. Li Tsong looked at Lu Qinghan with a hint of envy. To be carried through the sky by the divine dragon must have been an incredible thrill. Lu Qinghan jokingly asked if the general wanted a turn, but before Li Tsong could even react, Chen Qing spoke up with a calm indifference. In an instant, Li Tsong was snatched into the air and vanished from sight. It wasn't until 5 minutes later that he returned, gasping for air. He could barely find his voice, managed only to mutter that the experience was far too intense. It was, to be perfectly honest, a bit more excitement than the general had bargained for. Li Tsong eventually retreated 100 meters back, leaving 10,000 soldiers, missile launchers, and 20 tanks all aimed directly at Chongqing. The test was simple. Every weapon would fire simultaneously to measure their offensive power against Chongqing's legendary scales and natural defenses. Li Tsong expressed a flicker of worry, but Lu Qinghan assured him that the dragon had claimed to be invincible against such things. Hearing that the divine dragon considered himself peerless, Li Tsong stopped worrying. If the dragon says he's invincible, who are we to argue? He picked up the radio and gave the order for everyone to prepare, his voice cold and professional as the soldiers confirmed their readiness. With a single command, every weapon and missile battery would open fire. After a 3-second countdown, Li Tsong shouted the order to engage. Triggers were pulled, tanks roared, and missile launchers erupted. In an instant, a sea of bullets surged toward Chongqing like a wall of fire. Missiles and shells followed, trailing streaks of flame as they slammed into Chongqing. The resulting explosions were absolutely deafening. Even from 100 meters away, Li Tsong and the others had to cover their ears as the thunderous sound of the bombardment shook the very sky. As the endless barrage of fire slammed into Chongqing, thick smoke and black mist erupted, billowing toward the sky and obscuring everyone's view of what lay within. No one could tell what was happening until the last bullets were spent and the missiles fell silent. Only then did the crowd look on, with Lu Qinghan staring anxiously at the smoke. She told herself the divine dragon would be fine, but Li Tsong couldn't help but voice his own worry as the soldiers all craned their necks to see. They waited with bated breath, hoping for a miracle amidst the settling dust. And there he was, completely unharmed. He hadn't even shifted his original posture by a single inch. The crowd immediately erupted into cheers of relief. It was truly a sight to behold. After such a relentless bombardment, he didn't have a scratch on him. To be honest, it was a display of pure, overwhelming power. While some wondered how terrifying future monsters might be, others felt that with the dragon on their side, China would remain safe. Lu Qinghan shouted out in her excitement. She praised the divine dragon, while Li Tsong and the scientists who had developed the new ammunition gasped in collective disbelief. Those bullets could pierce steel plates 100 centimeters thick, yet the dragon was untouched. Through binoculars, they saw that his scales didn't even have a scratch. It seemed that all current conventional weapons were useless against him, leaving only nuclear options. And if those failed, he would truly be peerless. Given that the divine dragon was growing stronger every single day, his eventual invincibility seemed like a foregone conclusion. The onlookers felt a mix of luck and excitement. As long as they remained his ally, the nation would surely thrive under his protection. They were simply grateful that such a terrifying creature was on their side, and not the other way around. Li Tsong hurried forward to ask the divine dragon's opinion on the weapon's lethality. Chongqing admitted that while it felt like a mere tickle to him, it was significant. He noted that for other monsters, such firepower would be quite deadly. To him, however, the sensation was no different from raindrops falling on his skin. His scales were naturally hard, but his hardening skill had increased their durability 2 or 3 times over, making him a living fortress. The fact that he felt anything at all meant the bullets were effective, which filled the researchers with immense pride in their hard work. Their current development path was correct. Lu Qinghan suggested that in the future, they could even use monster parts or teeth to create even harder projectiles. She was right, of course. In the future, the country would indeed develop such specialized ammunition to pierce the hides of invading beasts. But in that original timeline, the divine dragon had been cornered and killed, leading to the nation's fall. This time, however, he would not let history repeat itself. Determined not to let the tragedies of his past life repeat, Chongqing listened as Li Tsong nodded in agreement with Lu Qinghan's suggestion. They planned to use the hardest parts of the monsters to craft ammunition once they appeared, a strategy the entire group felt was highly practical. Since the test was over, Chongqing calmly suggested they head back, but Li Tsong quickly mentioned he needed a moment with Lu Qinghan. Chongqing gave a slight nod and, with a single claw, tore a rift into the void, stepping through the shimmering crack in reality. He vanished without a trace, leaving the crowd in another wave of awe at such a terrifying display of spatial manipulation. Afterward, Li Tsong and Lu Qinghan found a quiet spot, where Li Tsong solemnly noted it was time to warn the nation about the coming monsters. Lu Qinghan felt a jolt of anxiety, wondering if the public would even believe them, though the current situation left them with little choice. In just 3 days, they had discovered over a dozen man-eaters, and their appearances were becoming alarmingly frequent, even expected that very night. These creatures often claimed more lives than the giant monsters, as they were experts at hunting humans and scavenging fallen beasts. Lu Qinghan spoke gravely. In the previous timeline, these man-eaters were the most feared because they lurked everywhere in the shadows. With only 2 days left, they had to prepare the people, especially since the dragon's appearance had already sparked widespread suspicion. The divine dragon's arrival had been a wake-up call. The clever ones already sensed that a massive upheaval was on the horizon. Only the foolish or the indifferent remained unconcerned, but given how much the public had already endured, one more shock seemed manageable. Li Tsong nodded, deciding to break the news to the country. An hour later, the military network released an official statement. The news instantly topped every trending list in China, leaving many stunned, though for many others, it was exactly what they had expected. The warning was clear. Monsters would arrive in 2 days, and citizens were urged to stockpile food to prevent chaos in the streets. From city boulevards to private homes, everyone with a phone saw the notification, sparking an immediate, frantic rush for supplies. One man recounted his shock at seeing a crowd suddenly loot a convenience store for noodles and water, only to realize the end was near. Reports flooded in of stores being packed to capacity within minutes, leaving those who arrived late with nothing but empty shelves. Yet, some remained skeptical, like one father who told his son it was all fake, scolding him to stop staring at his phone and find a job. It's real. There are monsters coming. The officials just posted it. Ma Dong cried out, worried that his parents, who rarely use smartphones, were still in the dark. He knew there was no time for long explanations. If they didn't buy supplies now, everything would be gone. Nonsense, his father barked sternly. What monsters? Get back to your room. But just as the words left his father's mouth, the television flickered to life with a breaking news report. This is a special bulletin, the anchor announced with grim urgency. The broadcast warned that monsters would appear in 2 days, urging citizens to stockpile supplies and stay indoors. We see the three of them frozen, staring at the screen in silence. His parents were stunned. After all, it wasn't every day the news interrupted their afternoon. I'm not joking, Ma Dong insisted. We have to go out and buy supplies right now. He practically dragged his parents out the door, but as they reached the street, they were met with a sight that left them utterly speechless. It seemed every household had already emerged. The local shops were already overflowing with panicked crowds. As they ran down the street, they realized that not a single store was empty. Some had even shuttered their doors the moment they heard. Many people were clever enough to realize that once the monsters arrived, money might become the most useless thing in the world. To be honest, they weren't wrong. In an apocalypse, supplies are the only true currency. Whoever has the food holds the power. And this frantic scene was currently playing out across every corner of the country. While some remained oblivious at home and the elderly struggled with their phones, others had already begun the desperate scramble to seize whatever they could find. As time ticked away, the situation grew increasingly volatile. Those who found empty shelves began to resort to force, but the authorities were quick to intervene. Massive patrols appeared on the streets to maintain order, broadcasting a clear message: looting would not be tolerated, and no one should let greed harm their fellow citizens. The warning was simple: face the consequences of your actions. Whenever a fight broke out over supplies, the patrols moved in instantly. Li Tsong, of course, had anticipated this chaos. He had already prepared solutions, using mobile billboard trucks to spread information and sending teams to the most remote, sparsely populated areas of the countryside. The goal of the broadcast was simple: ensure everyone in the country knew the monsters were coming, so they could stockpile enough supplies to survive the first few days. This was all he could do. With only 2 days left, humanity couldn't change the inevitable. Even with advance warning, there were limits to what could be achieved. In the face of such a threat, humans felt incredibly small. Their only task now was to survive until the dragon serum could be mass-produced, the true dawn of a new era. For now, they had to rely on their own luck and the protection of the divine dragon. As the entire world realized that monsters would arrive in just 48 hours, panic set in. From the Americas to Japan and beyond, hundreds of nations began to experience widespread unrest. The reason was universal: the desperate struggle for survival supplies. This was especially true in countries where firearms were easily accessible, turning the frantic rush for food into something far more dangerous. And who could blame them for being afraid? In places like the United States, the chaos was everywhere, with violence and fires breaking out just like the apocalyptic games they were so famous for creating. That evening, inside the meeting room of the Longshore military base, Li Tsong sat at the head of the table, his gaze sweeping over the gathered officials, including Lu Qinghan. The entire nation now knows that the monsters are coming, he noted in a heavy voice. Our task tomorrow is to begin the evacuation of the citizens. Earlier, Lu Qinghan had predicted that the first monster would appear in the city. Director Lu, Li Tsong asked, turning to her, what is the exact time of its arrival? Lu Qinghan knit her brows, focusing her memory on the events of her past life. Today is Thursday, so the day after tomorrow will be Saturday. I remember it was Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, she recalled. I was out with a friend when that monster suddenly burst out from deep underground. She remembered the terror of that moment and how, at the height of the crisis, the divine dragon had appeared to save her life. If it comes from underground, we can detect it, Li Tsong said firmly. Even the smallest vibration will leave a trace. One of the generals nodded in agreement. I will notify the Earthquake Bureau immediately, the general promised. However, Lu Qinghan then revealed that the very first monster wouldn't actually appear in China. It will appear in the United States, she said gravely. In her previous life, the world didn't find out until days later that the Americans had a 5-hour head start. The Americans had managed to eliminate the first monster in secret, keeping the event under a total information blackout without telling a soul. It wasn't until the monsters were everywhere that they finally spoke up, revealing a shocking secret. They had already developed functional mecha suits. Li Tsong let out a cold, dry laugh. The United States has always operated this way, he remarked, unsurprised that they would hide such a discovery from the world. But then, he realized his own actions were not so different. He, too, had waited until his own country was prepared before alerting the rest of the globe. Meanwhile, at the Qin family zoo, a soldier arrived to deliver a report to the Divine Dragon. Lord Dragon, the man-eating monster carcasses you requested have arrived. The bodies were lowered from a helicopter, and the soldiers departed immediately. High above, Qin Qing hovered in the air, looking down at the strange remains. As he stared at the four grotesque and terrifying corpses, he felt a sudden, primal surge of hunger. To be honest, they looked quite appetizing to him. He opened his massive jaws and inhaled sharply, drawing the carcasses into his maw. Instantly, he felt a wave of immense, surging energy coursing through him. The meal was a success, granting him 40,000 evolution points. In an instant, his body grew larger, his weight increased, and his dragon scales shimmered. His limbs grew longer and more defined, but most importantly, he could finally feel his third claw beginning to form. He just needed a few more points. He was certain that he would soon sprout his third dragon claw, and this time, he had even unlocked a new skill. It was exactly as he had suspected. These monsters were packed with high energy, a theory he had been considering for quite some time. He had asked Lu Qinghan to secure these remains, and to his delight, a single man-eater carcass provided 10,000 evolution points. Hungry for more, he vanished into the void with a single thought, leaving the zoo behind to begin a journey across the world. He hoped to find more man-eaters in the desert of India. It was night, and a group of locals were riding camels back to their village. Suddenly, the camels refused to move another inch. They stopped in unison, crying out in a state of extreme agitation and panic. The beasts bucked their riders off one by one before bolting into the distance. The men cursed, wondering what had possessed the animals. They were stranded 10 kilometers from home, facing a long walk until dawn, and they vowed to slaughter the camels once they found them. As they watched the camels disappear, their anger was cut short. A woman suddenly collapsed to the ground, paralyzed by what she saw. She pointed into the distance and screamed. In the deep darkness of the night, they only had oil lamps and torches to light their way. Flashlights were a luxury they couldn't afford, so they raised their flickering flames toward the direction the woman was pointing. They saw tall, looming silhouettes that looked almost human, but a second later, the heads of those figures split open like blooming flowers. Fleshy petals danced in the air, a sight both grotesque and terrifying. The group shrieked in horror, realizing they were facing monsters. The man-eaters lunged, their split heads acting like tentacles to ensnare one of the men and drag him slowly toward their maws. The man clawed desperately at the sand, begging for mercy, but the overwhelming strength of the creature made his resistance utterly futile. The others were paralyzed with fear, yet none could escape the monster's reach as they were seized one by one and dragged into the dark. Just as despair took hold, the sky was suddenly swallowed by thick clouds, erupting with thunder and violent flashes of lightning. A gale-force wind whipped the calm desert into a raging sandstorm, and within those roiling thunderclouds, something massive was moving. A gargantuan body swirled in the heights, and in an instant, the man-eaters dropped to their knees, releasing their terrified prey. The locals scrambled back, gasping for air. One man pointed upward, trembling, as they all looked toward the wonders hidden in the storm. Through the crackling brilliance of the lightning, we see a massive silhouette shifting within the thunderclouds, until suddenly, a pair of glowing eyes appears. Those golden pupils shine through the storm with a supreme sense of pressure, causing the locals to collapse to their knees in an instant. Their bodies tremble with a primal terror, fearing that after the first monsters, an even greater beast has arrived to claim them. The man-eaters on the ground look up at the clouds and let out eerie, high-pitched shrieks, almost like the sound of frightened rats, filled with pure rage and dread. They are clearly terrified of what dwells within the storm, and then, a voice full of divine authority echoes through the clouds, booming in the hearts of everyone present. It sounds like the command of a god. In a flash, bolts of lightning descend from the heavens, piercing through the bodies of the man-eaters. The thunder is deafening and the light blinding, leaving the locals frozen in shock as they watch the monsters being obliterated in a single moment. The sandstorm grows even more violent, forcing the men to shield their eyes, but just as quickly as it began, the chaos around them starts to fade. When they finally manage to open their eyes, the heavy thunderclouds have already begun to disperse into the night sky.